I'm inviting you to stay with me on this whole show because we're going to try and get into the head of what it means to be a devout Muslim and to show you that certain things follow. All right, if you want to understand Islam, you've got to get inside of the head of a devout Muslim. Or said differently, you have to see the world through Muhammad's eyes. Muhammad, the founder of Islam. Now, quick disclaimers. Hillary Clinton recently said after the terrorist attacks in Belgium, we're not going to focus on Islamic terrorism. What do you want to do? Be at war with 1.2 billion people? You want to be at war with an entire religion? That was mix and match. Hear me? That was mix and match. Let me make my point. There was a day when you were compelled to worship the Roman gods and compelled to burn incense to Caesar. Right? Most of Rome did not believe that Caesar really was a god, but it was, all right, this is what I have to do. I live here. I don't want to die. I don't want to have my head cut off, be tortured, because we've seen what they did to Christians who refused to say Caesar was God, right? They were tortured. They were killed. They were fed to the lions. And any number of horrible tortures were taken out on their bodies because they refused to profess with their mouth and to burn a little incense saying that Caesar was God. So when Hillary says, we're not going to be at war with 1.2 million Muslims, well, you know what, Hillary? Guess what? We won't be, because there's a lot of Muslims who really don't believe this stuff, okay? There's a lot of Muslim women who think this is garbage, but they're stuck. What are they going to do? There's a lot of Muslim men that don't want to go and kill infidels, but there is no God but God, and Allah and Muhammad is his messenger. So they start to think, well, maybe it's about interpretation. And these Muslim terrorists are just misinterpreting the Quran, and they're not giving us a proper rendition of Islamic history. And if they are, I don't want to hear, I can't hear you. Muhammad didn't. Muhammad was a man of peace. Muhammad didn't kill anyone. Muhammad didn't have sex slaves. Muhammad didn't order anyone to be assassinated. They won't listen. They actually literally do not even study their own material. So, don't fall for the bait and switch. Islam is a school of thought. It's a religion. It's a political blueprint for what the world should look like. It's a judicial blueprint in Sharia law. This is how you punish people. These are the crimes that they commit that are punishable. The public preaching of the gospel is punishable under Islamic law. You're not even allowed to put a crucifix on top of a church under Sharia law. It's a crime, okay? And this material that I'm talking about, it's all in Islamic books, but most Muslims don't go to mass. Most Muslims don't go to the mosque every Friday. Most Muslims don't stop and pray 5 times a day in the way that Muhammad said to. A lot of Muslims in America, they'll drink beer. That's a sin. They'll eat pork. That's a sin. So there are Muslims who say there's no God but God and Allah, and there's no God but Allah and Muhammad is his prophet. They'll say that, but then they don't follow the example of Muhammad. They don't even know the example of Muhammad. And so when you try to tell them that Muhammad had sex slaves, they get really offended, because then you're going against their culture, their parents, their grandparents. So it's a knee-jerk reaction. But friend, the facts are stubborn things. And reading the history and the theology and the most sacred books of Islam shows that Muhammad, if he was the prophet of God, must be obeyed. Now let's just play that game. What if Muhammad was right? Muhammad said that Jesus was a prophet, John the Baptist, David, Moses, Abraham. But he said, I, Muhammad, I'm the last prophet. None will be after me. And I'm going to correct all the things that the Jews and the Christians corrupted. And I'm going to give the book, the Quran. And the Quran quotes portions of the Old Testament, quotes portions of the New Testament, affirms portions of the Old Testament, affirms portions of the New Testament, in the Gospels especially. So what if Muhammad was the last prophet? Just suspend reality for a minute. What if what he said was true? That the early Christians and the Jews and the monks and the scribes did corrupt the message of Jesus? What if he was right, that Moses and David and Abraham were prophets, but that the Jewish scribes and the Jewish priests corrupted the Old Testament. What if God sent him? Muhammad. What if God sent Muhammad to correct what they screwed up and to say, Allah is one. He has no son. He doth not beget, neither is he begotten. All right? That's a denial of the Trinity. Allah must be worshipped. Allah alone can forgive sins. All idols are the works of men's hands, and those who worship them will be the firewood of hell, just like the idols themselves. Those are all things that Muhammad said. What if it's true? And he really was the seal of the prophets. And the Quran says that Muhammad is the best example. He's a worthy soul. He's the best example of what it means to be a servant of Allah. If Muhammad was the last prophet, if what he said was true, then we are obligated to obey him and to follow his example without question. Without question. So what does that mean that we're going to do? We'll talk about it when I come back. But I'll tell you one thing right now. The passages I'm going to read to you, those two brothers that just murdered all those people in Belgium and the other terrorists working with them, they know every passage I'm reading to. They know them by heart, and they're living them out.